Hello, everybody, and welcome to our June 2021 update of the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. And I'm here with our People Mover host, Brian Crawford. Please keep your hands and arms inside the vehicle at all times, Brian.
Yeah, and enjoy our luxurious trip around the attractions of Tomorrowland.
Land of the future.
Mm-hmm. Ooh,
Well,
very groovy.
The reason I chose this music, which is People Mover music, is because we're going to be talking all about Chapter 17 today, which I worked on all last month, and, well, for the second half of the month, and I actually got the chapter fully updated, and we're going to go over all those things I've added, and, the chapter is Tomorrowland of the 1970s and 1980s, so this is the perfect music for that time period. So, before we get to that, I just want to remind everybody that if you haven't done your shopping yet, Donald Duck's birthday is on June 9th. Be sure to get him something. And also, I'd like to wish all the fathers out there a very happy Father's Day, which will be on June 20th this year. So let's do our shameless plugs that we always do, Brian. Are you ready to go through all these again?
I'm ready. We'll make this quick and painless for y'all.
So I just want to remind everybody that we are on Patreon. It does cost money to bring you magic. The best things in life are free, but magic isn't. And so if you want to help support all the content that we bring you for free, be sure to check out our Patreon. And for as little as $1 a month, you can get rewards every month that are well worth their weight in gold and far exceed a $1 donation. And if you want to contribute more than $1 a month, the reward tiers go higher and higher in increments of basically $5. The more you contribute, the more rewards we send you, basically. And there are 4 different tier levels that we created, all sort of with a Jiminy Cricket tie-in. We have Brave, Truthful, and Unselfish, and then Unofficial Conscience. And each dollar level that we show here garners higher and higher rewards. But even at the $1 level, you still get musical content every month. So it's a mutually beneficial arrangement to become a Patreon subscriber. And to check out our reward levels and everything, just even if you're curious about it, go to www.patreon.com/DisneyChris. And now I'm going to turn over the reins to Brian, who's going to talk all about our merchandise. Go, Brian.
Yeah, go out there and represent Disney Chris on the streets with some killer t-shirts and stickers and notebooks and mugs and such. You can pick all this stuff up on our online merchandise store. And be great representatives of the JC podcast and the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. And just visit that website there, jcpodcast.threadless.com, and a portion of your purchase will get directed right back into our World Wide Web endeavors and magic making. And check us out on Instagram at DisneyChris_JC_podcast. And I kind of handle the posts there, and I'll keep everybody up to date on what we release on
Brian. We're one away from a milestone.
We're one away from 1,100. Yeah. So be that person.
Be number 1,100.
Yeah, you can do that subscribe. Right now.
Yes.
Just press pause, go over to Instagram, and click on the little follow button.
We're at $10.99 as of this recording.
Right. So tons of great Disneyland pictures and updates to the podcast that we release a couple times a month. And share that out to your friends. Let's increase our followership there.
Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, and Facebook. You want me to do Facebook?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
join
kind
us
of
on Facebook.
you handle social media stuff, so I'll let you do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have a very active Facebook group. It's Jiminy Cricket's exclamation point podcast that you can join and talk about all things Disney with your fellow cricketeers, crocketeers. Are we?
Cracketeers, Jimmy
Uh-oh.
Crack Corneteers.
Yeah, but
And I
it's a
don't
good
care.
time. A great place to find all of the updates throughout the month that Chris releases on the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour there. So,
And
good
to
times.
communicate with other fellow cricketeers as well.
Yeah.
And
Talk
make
about what you
lifelong
love.
friendships.
Talk about what you don't.
Right. Just like we did in our last, well, we'll get to that in a minute. So let's talk about our other podcasts. We have an audio podcast, which is sort of our first show that we began about 3 years ago. And we release an episode about once a month, sometimes more, sometimes less, average of once a month. And the most recent 2 episodes have been a tribute to Disney's California Adventure from February. And we didn't have an episode in March, but we had 2 episodes in April, part 1 and part 2 of our Winnie the Pooh 55th anniversary tribute. 6 hours of content, folks. Each episode is over 3 hours long, so we had plenty to say about Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah,
And
it kind of wiped us out. We didn't even release a podcast in May.
Right. Because of that, we skipped May, because it was just the amount of research we did for that episode was ridiculous. So
Yeah.
our next episode is likely going to be a one-parter. We're trying to keep it a little more focused on one thing. And we're going to talk about the original Fantasyland dark rides. So the 4 from the 50s, the 3 opening day, and then of course Alice in Wonderland, which opened a couple years later. And so we've each been assigned a dark ride. We're going to talk about the original versions of it compared to how they are today. And I'm doing Alice and Snow White. I got the ladies. And Brian is doing Peter Pan, and Ruthie is doing Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So we're going to get into the weeds about the history and evolution of the Fantasyland dark rides. That's coming later this month, like the last week of June. So you have that to look forward to. And to listen to these and all of our past podcast episodes, I think we're up to 170 or thereabouts, or is it 140?
Yeah, right around 140.
140.
So, yeah.
jcricketspodcast.blogspot.com has all of our episodes available to listen to at your leisure. We have other podcasts as well. One I sort of hinted at a minute ago is called Down the Rabbit Hole, which is a special podcast only for Patreon or PayPal supporters at the $5 level or higher monthly. And the last one we just recorded yesterday and released today, we got pretty heated and a little political. So we sort of go there on this particular podcast. We sort of share things we normally sort of keep to ourselves, like our opinions, or we're a little more opinionated, and it's more of a round table, off the cuff, opinion type discussion show.
Yeah, it was fun. If you're a $5 Patreon subscriber or higher, you can get access to that, and
you can learn how I really feel about things.
Well, Chris shared his feelings, and then
Yes.
I shared mine, and we let Ruthie, who's
You got the
probably the
last
most
say.
sane in our group,
Yeah, right.
have the final word.
She's probably the most level-headed. So anyway, the other podcast, Jiminy Crickets, which is also in this picture, is the one I just talked about. But we also have another one called Dateline Jiminy Crickets, which is on YouTube. But we also have an audio version on our regular podcast stream for those who prefer the audio. And it's more of an audio-visual experience, so the preferred way to watch it is on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Disney Chris, DOTCOM. So basically Disney Chris with the .com spelled out. And we post it there about once a month. And it's more of a news show. And then we do special games like top 10 lists and cooking segments. And it's more like Good Morning America, but the Disney version. With Ruthie is Barbara Walters and I'm Hugh Downs. So...
You're taking it way back.
Yeah, I don't even know who hosts it now. Who knows? I'm too old for that. I don't even watch cable anymore. I don't watch local TV anymore. I only watch the internet. So in some ways I'm old, and in some ways I'm new, just like Walt Disney. Anyways, in addition to all I talked about, we've been releasing special bonus episodes of the regular audio podcast, and it's like a 5-part series we're calling The Magical Music of Walt Disney. And at the beginning of May, we just released volume 3, I should say, of this, and it covered the years 1963 to 1973. This is a chronology of Disney music, tracing the evolution and hitting all the sort of historical and high notes, pun intended, of Disney music. And we just recorded the one for this month. We'll be releasing probably very early. It might even be out by the time you're listening to this, which is episode 4, which covers basically the 70s into the early 90s. So that was fun yesterday. So I still have to edit that, put it all together, but everything is recorded and ready to go. It might be out tomorrow, depending on what I get done today. Pretty sure I'll get it out by tomorrow.
Awesome. And remember, if you're a Patreon subscriber at any level, Chris will send you the MP3 files of all the music in that episode.
Bonus reward. Bonus podcast, bonus reward.
Bonus.
So, yeah, double bonus. So, in addition to the Magical Audio Tour, which we're about to talk about, I also post a Disney Song of the Day on my website every day of the year, and then I have a place you can go and listen to the past songs over the past 3 years. I keep them stored for 3 years, and so every day of the year I have a new Disney song you can listen to on my homepage. So just wanted you to be aware of that if you weren't aware already. And last but not least, we want to mention it's not really that new anymore. I've had it for a while. I need to redo this graphic, I guess. But anyway, we have a mobile-friendly version of the Magical Audio Tour for those using mobile devices and not at their home computer. So in order to access that, you go to your regular browser. It's not an app. You access it from your browser, and it's a special page on my website that was designed to be mobile friendly and easier to navigate if you're using your mobile device, because the other version of the audio tour and my website is set up for desktop or laptop devices, so sometimes it's not that easy to navigate when you're using a pad or a phone. So we set that up just for you. And to get to that, it's disneychris.com/311, or you can just go to my homepage and link to it from there at disneychris.com. So we're done with our shameless plugs already, Brian. We got through it pretty quick, but we're good to go because we have a ton of new content to talk about on the audio tour. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm ready to go to Tomorrowland and maybe some make-believe land that never was built. So
right.
I'm excited. This is good stuff. This is great music from a great period of Disneyland history that's kind of gone now.
We're talking from about the years 1974 up to about 1994, so like a 20-year period at Disneyland. sort of post the New Tomorrowland era of the late 60s, but pre the way Tomorrowland is now. Kind of like
and
the
this
in-between
is like
time.
the Disneyland of Chris and I, our childhood. This is what we grew up with. So it's very special to both of us.
Yes. Now, I need to open up my browser real quick. I forgot to do that. So we can go to the web page. So bear with me, folks.
All right, just listen to this groovy background music.
Yes, this is the music that was used for the People Mover, which is actually music that was public, it was commercially available music that Capitol Records produced all this music in the 70s, and it was Jack Wagner used this music to sort of capture the feeling of tomorrow. And believe it or not, back in the 70s, this music just seemed very futuristic to us. It just seemed like very cosmopolitan and like going to a shopping mall or an airport, or it just seemed very today, very au courant, even though now it seems very nostalgic. But back then it really did seem kind of like either today or somewhat forward to looking to the future style of music. It's hard to imagine, but it's true. If you were around, if you're as old as Brian and I, you will relate to that. If you're younger...
Oh my gosh, walking around Sears with my mom. This is all we'd hear throughout the whole store.
Exactly. Or the grocery store.
Uh-huh.
Or an elevator. Or the airport.
Yep, I just remember sitting in Sears just wanting to leave, and then I'd be sitting on a chair somewhere listening to this and be like, ugh, can we go?
I remember the mannequins.
Can we go to the mall?
The mannequins used to scare the heck out of me. I remember being so frightened because they had heads back then. Like, they looked like people. They had wigs and everything. All right, we're here. We're ready to look at my website. So here we are. A World on the Move, Tomorrowland through the 1970s and 1980s. Now we're going to skip over all the tracks that were already on the page. I already had completed my entire America Sings sections, because there's more than one. So, really the first thing we're going to talk about is some People Mover stuff. So starting with track number 28. Which is actually what you're listening to right now. So this is the background music you would hear either while you were riding on the People Mover or when you were in the queue area for the People Mover. And then the next track, 29, is sort of cool because this is Jack Wagner as the narrator, and this was probably from 1974, I'd say. And it is not a live recording. It is actual source audio, clear and crisp, perfect sound quality. You won't find this anywhere else but DisneyChris.com. It's like the ideal version of listening to the People Mover with no rattling cars or people screaming or people jumping out of the car and doing silly
getting
things.
Run over by the People Mover. Yeah.
Right. So it's the entire ride through, all the narration, you know, as you go through all the buildings and everything. Now the next track is sort of something I had to recreate using my keen sense of sound and imagination. But the beginning is authentic because we do have Jack Wagner introducing it, which is taken directly from the People Mover onboard spiel. But then all the sound effects you hear are sort of my recreation. But it is based on an actual recording I listened to of the real thing. It was a live recording with really bad audio, but I did use it as sort of a guide on as to how to create this. And what it is when you went through the carousel building on the second floor, they had screens all around you. And because your peripheral vision was completely surrounded, it gave you the sense of things that not only you, but everything around you was moving in high speed. And they called this the super speed tunnel. And they showed, Formula One race cars and jets and motorboats and traffic and just all sorts of high speed things all around you. So you hear the sounds of motor cars and speedboats and jets and everything. It's kind of fun. Short but sweet.
Yeah. By the time I started visiting Disneyland, it was already something different that you'll talk about a little later.
Yeah, I also have the what happened after that. So McDonnell Douglas, Mission to Mars. In 1975, they retired Flight to the Moon and did a slight overlay, and it became Mission to Mars. So it was basically the same attraction. Oh my goodness.
Bless you.
I'm allergic to Martians. It was basically the same attraction, but they changed the destination to Mars. So I have it split into two sections. The pre-show, which is the audio animatronic mission control center with, I think his name is the original was Mr. Morrow, but they changed his name to Mr. Johnson. I guess they didn't want to be silly. They wanted to be more serious.
Yeah.
And then, because the original person's name was Tom Morrow. So, McDonnell Douglas, Mission to Mars, this is the actual in-flight portion of the attraction. The Disneyland Railroad is the on-car narration as you go through Tomorrowland, and you can hear the Autopia cars. And then it's the sounds as you arrive at the station, including the ticket announcements that please pull out your D coupon for your journey on the Disneyland Railroad, etc., with Jack Wagner. And then the Disneyland monorail system, the Mark III. This is the onboard narration for the Mark III, which opened in 1968 or 69, but it was still operating when this chapter takes place. So it's the narration for the monorail from the 70s, basically. Now I have a whole section for Space Mountain. Some things were already in place, but the things that are new, this is an attraction preview with Jack Wagner that they played at a gift shop on Main Street while the Space Mountain was under construction. It was a video that they showed in a little preview area.
Do you know where that was?
Yes, it was the building where the Wurlitzer store used to be, on the corner there.
Oh, on the corner.
It's called Disneyland Showcase now.
Yeah.
It was called Disneyland
they sell
Showcase.
Hats in there now. Yep.
It was still called Disneyland Showcase, but it used to be a little exhibit where you saw coming attractions.
Okay.
Okay, so
cool.
The next one I added is Space Mountain. For years I thought it was Corn Chat. I don't know. I think the way the R and the M, the M sort of looks like an R, so I always would call it Corn Chat. I don't know why, but it's called Com Chat, like communication device chat. But this is sort of the ambiance of like people on the radios communicating with each other. Like
this so freaked me out. When you hear them talking through their comms, it's like it's about to get real.
It's like status check, check, propulsion check. So
butterflies in stomach. Check.
Right. Space Mountain outer space sound effects. So they didn't have music until the 90s on the Space Mountain attraction. Originally there were no onboard speakers or anything like that. So all the sounds you heard were outside of the vehicle. So this is all of the sound effects for Space Mountain from the time you're in the queue area, getting on board. There's a safety announcement. And then it's the sounds you hear as you're going up the ramps, and then all the sounds you would hear as you were going through the attraction. Because they actually, to add more excitement, they projected the sounds of people screaming. So not all the screaming was real. A lot of it was pre-recorded, believe it or not. Yeah. So it's kind of a fun track. Because it's how it actually...
scare any kids away.
This is how Space Mountain sounded before they used music. So it's kind of fun. So the space stage is what is now the Magic Eye Theater. It used to be outdoor, and they enclosed it a few years after. And this was all in place, but I did add one additional thing, which is the Mickey Mouse Club Reunion, which was a show that they showed at the space stage where they would invite original Mouseketeers to come and perform. Now, what I'm using for this, because I don't have an actual recording of the Disneyland show, they had a 1980 television show called the Mickey Mouse Club Reunion, which was a television special with all the original Mouseketeers after 25 years. And I used that to replicate this track. But they sing all the favorite songs from the old show, and it's a lot of fun. Annette is in this, and everybody. So.
Yeah, that works. So that Magic Eye Theater, well, that whole area was open, and then it became enclosed.
You see what it looked like?
Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, or
no, Captain EO. Captain EO.
Yeah.
And I actually.
Oh, Captain EO was first. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, actually, Magic Journeys was first, but I'll describe that in a minute because that's going to be on this chapter. So. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is the Starcade, which was a video arcade. Originally, it didn't have video games because it opened in '77. Before they had really many, other than Pong, they didn't really have any video games quite yet.
Had a lot of mechanical pinball machines in there, I remember.
Yeah, over the years they added arcade, video games as they came onto the market. So what I'm using is it opens with the sound of an arcade. You hear, all the games being played. You can sort of hear Pac-Man in the distance. And then all of a sudden it fades out and I play the music from the Tron video game, which I thought was perfect. So
yeah, that's
cool. You hear the background music from the actual Tron video game. Now the next in 1982, when Tron came out as part of a promotional tie-in, they did some updates to the People Mover, and they actually the Super Speed Tunnel became the Tron Tunnel, the Tron Speed Tunnel, and all the projections were computer graphics from the movie Tron. So here is an updated version of the cue music, which was music from the Tron soundtrack. That's track 48. Track 49 is the 1980s version of the People Mover. This is a female narrator, but she talks about all the things that were added since the Jack Wagner. So this is a different version of the People Mover. It includes Star Tours and Captain EO. So she talks about all the later stuff. And then, of course, I have the audio for the Tron speed tunnels. And in this case, this is the authentic audio. I have the real audio for that. The Premiere Shop is background music that was originally used in Walt Disney World, and later they used it in the gift shops for Tomorrowland. It's just more of that capital music type. It's a little bit more slow and wistful and somber than what we're listening to now. It's a different type of music, but it is more production type music that was used.
Originally, look at that great mural there. I love that thumbnail picture you have.
Yes, that's the Mary Blair.
The Mary Blair mural.
So this is a actual loop that originated at 72's Walt Disney World Tomorrowland, but it later was used in the gift shops in Disneyland. And the All-American College Band, this is a recording, I believe, from the early 80s of them. It's an authentic recording. And this is a band that still performs in the park today. It's all college students in a... you should get your sons involved in this. It's a special it's a special internship where you perform in the park for a summer. The Tomorrowland Terrace Bandstand was already on the chapter, but I did some revisions and added some additional tracks to it. Oh, the music ended. Let me start it up again. I forgot to put it on repeat. We got to start it over again.
Yeah, I can't go without that. I don't know. I've been listening to that as you talk, and I I'm picturing myself in a little pair of corduroy pants and a little striped shirt with the snap buttons. You remember those things?
Yes.
They weren't the buttons, a traditional button. It was like a little snap.
Yes.
Big old brown collar.
I think I wore things of that nature. My mother used to make clothes for me too. We used to have matching outfits. Like my dad we'd have leisure suits.
Uh-huh.
And they'd match. Like we'd all have the same clothes. Mine would be like a vest, and then my brother and dad would have the jacket, but it all matched.
Yeah. I only wore the vest on picture day at school.
Yeah, I have a few with the vest on picture day. Anyway, Pizzazz is the same. These are all actual live groups that performed at Tomorrowland in the 70s and 80s. In some cases, I had the real music. In other cases, I had to sort of come up with something to represent it. In the case of Pizzazz, I have the real music. Friendship Train and Sunshine Balloon, I did not. So I had something on here already, but I wasn't happy with it. So I kind of went back and redid these with music I felt is a little more authentic to what would have been the style and type of music that these groups would have played, but it is not authentic. Grupo Tabasco is a mixed bag. Some of it is authentic and some of it isn't. I have a lot more authentic music of it, but I don't like it. It's all slow and I don't have any real upbeat stuff, so I was talking to Brian about this. I used the music of a group called Brazil 66.
Oh, yeah.
Which sounds a lot like them. So
yeah,
I sort
you did a really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys will like this one. Very upbeat, cool, hip, and very of the times. So
Papa Do Run Run and Michael Iceberg were already on the page. And Crash and Airplay were some 80s bands. Crash sort of played all the hits of the era. And they were actually evolved from Grupo Tabasco. Some of the same members from Crash had originated in Grupo Tabasco.
Oh, neat.
Airplay was a later group.
Airplay. That's when I remember. Yeah.
And I actually found a real group from the 80s called Airplay. So that's the music you'll hear, but it does sound like the same style of music that they would have played, but I think it's a different Airplay. But I used it anyway because it's the same name and it made me feel better using something that at least the group has the same name. Anyway, Crash, I just found a group playing a bunch of 80s covers. It was like a 25-minute medley of 80s covers and it sounded perfect, so I just used that. Polo was already on the website, and this is real. This was a record that they actually put out, and they were a young group performing in the 80s. They also performed at Videopolis. So the next section is for Circle Vision, which included American Journeys as well as Wonders of China. The Bell Telephone Company, this was already on the chapter before. They used to play the jingle as you exited the show because they originally sponsored Circle Vision. And so it was the song that was a popular television jingle at the time. Reach out and touch someone. They actually played that as you walked out of the theater. American Journey's promotional package was a little thing from the Disney Channel that I grabbed and sort of edited together that just sort of talks about the grand opening of American Journeys, which opened in '84, replacing America the Beautiful. And PSA actually took over the sponsorship at that time, which was an airline back then, for those who don't know. They did a pre-show with Orville from The Rescuers talking about aviation. But that's been on the site for a while. I just thought I'd mention that. But anyway, the two things for American Journeys that I did add were I now have the complete soundtrack to the full show of American Journeys, 19 minutes. It's the actual show that you would watch. And then I also have, this is sort of a exclusive because it's not really available. Somebody sent it to a friend of mine and me, and the audio quality is not the best, but I included it anyway because it's just so special to have this. It's the musical score to American Journeys without any of the dialogue or sound effects. It's just the music by itself. It sounds a little muffled. It's not the greatest sound quality, but it's listenable. It's just not up to my regular standards, but I included it anyway. So in a little bit later, Delta took over the sponsorship of the Circle Vision, and in doing so, they redid the pre-show, and they had a new pre-show film with Dusty, the Delta Air Lion. And so it was a cartoon you would watch, and then all around the room, you can kind of see a little bit of it in this picture. They had all these little displays on the wall that moved and animated, and during the movie, he'd have his friend Buzzy the Bear turn on all the things so they would move. So all these little things, it was sort of like about world travel. It had little things from around the world, like the Eiffel Tower and the Leaning Tower of Pisa and the Taj Mahal and just all sorts of Big Ben, whatever. And they would move around and stuff. And so this is only about 75% of the show. I didn't have a clear recording of the full show, but I sort of tried to make it transition smoothly so you don't really notice the parts that are skipped. But it is a good 75% of the show. And then Wonders of China, this is the music you would hear as you entered the theater. And then I had a 5-minute abridged version of the show on my site before, but I replaced it with the full 19-minute version of the full Wonders of China show. And for those who don't know, they showed both films in that theater simultaneously. In the first half of the day, they would show American Journeys. Then it would close for about an hour, and they would switch the film, and it would reopen, and for the rest of the day, they would show Wonders of China. So you could actually see both back then.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How close is that Wonders of China show to the one the recent version at Epcot?
Oh, well, that was sort of taken from this.
Oh,
It's a cut down version of this where they changed a lot of the music, but it's basically the same movie, but it's like they took 8 minutes out of it.
I see. I haven't been to Epcot since they changed the
original version was the exact same one from Epcot. Okay, so Magic Eye Theater was what we just talked about, which was originally the outdoor space stage. Space stage. So when they first brought in Magic Journeys. Originally, it was shown outdoors at night, and it was shown under the stars, and they just projected it on the screen as you were sitting in the outdoor theater. But eventually, they closed that and built a whole roof and walls around it, and then they reopened it with Magic Journeys still playing. But at that point, they already knew that because Captain EO was already in production. So they did that in order to have a venue to show Captain EO. But so Magic Journeys was both shown outdoors and later indoors. And it was a movie from the Imagination Pavilion at Epcot, which they also showed at Disneyland for a couple of years. So this is the full audio from the movie, which is new to the site. I had the song always, but now I have the full movie audio. And I also added the background music in the outdoor lobby area as you were waiting to go into the theater. And then I worked on my Captain EO section. Were you a fan of Captain EO? I'm not into
Why'd you have to ask me that?
I'm not really a fan of popular music
No,
from the 80s.
I don't know. For a lot of Disneyland fans, it was really cool, but it just never really spoke to me. I don't know.
It's just not my cup. I'm not into that style of music, so it
Yeah,
never
I mean,
really...
the characters were really cool, like the ones they made for the show.
I like the little guy on his shoulder.
Yeah,
I always
the
liked
little
him.
elephant
Flitter.
guy, I think.
Yeah, no, his name was Flitter. He was like a little bear.
Yeah, Flitter.
With wings. Yeah. So
I don't know.
anyways,
I wasn't a big fan. It was cool when it came back, and I got to see it with my kids, but...
So I added Dateline Disneyland, which was an actual news segment they would show on the Disney Channel, where they would have different updates to the park. And this one talked about the Captain EO premiere. Then I added the lobby music for Captain EO. And the pre-show, you can kind of see in this picture, they had little television monitors throughout the waiting area. And they would show a little film on the making of Captain EO, mostly set to music. And then I have the music you would hear as you enter the theater. And then I have the full show itself, including the music you would hear as you exited the theater. That's why it's a little bit longer, because I tacked on the... It's basically another part of me, a reprise of it, but it's an instrumental version of it. And the Captain EO musical score is the record version of the two songs. You know, Another Part of Me, and I can't remember the name of the other one, I'm sorry. The first one he sings. We Are Here to Change the World. It's actually the other way around. That's the second song. So then
Yeah, that sounds right.
The Star Tours section had already all been completed. So I'm going to skip over that. Tomorrowland 1988 was a television news spot talking about the recent additions to Tomorrowland, which included Captain EO and Star Tours. Now we've got the Mark V monorail, which is a version of the monorail that replaced the Mark III, not the Mark IV, because that was the Walt Disney World monorail, was the Mark IV. So after the Mark III came the Walt Disney World one, which was the Mark IV. So then the Mark V was Disneyland's replacement of the Mark III, which looked a heck of a lot like the Walt Disney World monorail. So this is the audio for that, but it's only the audio from Tomorrowland to the hotel. I actually don't have the hotel back into the park part of it. TranStar is as you can see from this picture, they rolled out on this little cart.
Oh, yeah.
That looked sort of like a Star Speeder from Star Tours. And then they came out and they all played guitar and electric drums and danced around. Very 80s. So I have a 35-minute track of like guitar synthesizer 80s music.
Yeah, there's kind of a cult following for that group too.
Yeah, they actually have a page on Facebook.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now this is a new section. These next two sections fall under a sort of a different category than what we just talked about. This is the Tomorrowland that never was. These are two concepts for areas in the park that were never built, which include, and they both have sort of a Tomorrowland theme, one of them more than the other. This, of course, the first one is Discovery Bay, which was actually going to be built over in Frontierland, where they ended up building Galaxy's Edge eventually. But this was supposed to be like a Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea island at the top of the world themed area.
Much better idea than Star Wars.
So I have the theatrical trailer to Island at the Top of the World. Then I have a little preview with Jack Wagner describing all the attractions that we're going to go in. And then I have Tony Baxter, he was the mastermind behind this project. And then I have the music that they played at the preview center, which was actually located in Fantasyland, in next to where Dumbo was, because that's sort of where the entrance to this land was going to be eventually, because it was that back area by the Skyway where you would go in.
Yeah, the Big Thunder Trail. Yeah,
right,
okay.
Exactly. So I had to sort of use my imagination and creativity to create some of these tracks because these are things that never existed. So I'll explain what I used for these if I didn't have authentic audio. So the Hyperion airship, I used music from the soundtrack to Island at the Top of the World. That was used during scenes with the Hyperion balloon being shown. So it has sort
Great
of that
movie.
sound to
Go
it.
see that if you haven't. From
It's
I think
on Disney Plus.
1974.
It's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, you're right. They just put it on. Yep.
Nemo, the Ultimate Adventure is a proposed attraction. Actually not for Discovery Bay, but it sort of fits in, so I put it here. But it was supposed to be located behind New Orleans Square, sort of where they eventually put Indiana Jones. That was the area they had thought of for this. But I have Thurston Howell. Not Thurston Howell. What's his name? Tony the Tiger.
Oh, Thurl Ravenscroft?
Thurl Ravenscroft. I said Thurston Howell from Gilligan's Island.
Is that from Gilligan's Island?
The millionaire from Gilligan's Island. Sorry, folks. So anyways, he was brought in to do a little narrative to describe this proposed attraction. This was a proposal, and he just did like a little description. And then I added music and sound effects, sort of underscoring all of his descriptions, kind of giving you the sense of what the attraction would have been. And then under that, I have a restaurant that was supposed to go in Discovery Bay where you would eat in Captain Nemo's Grand Salon, a seafood restaurant.
Yeah, this would have been so cool.
And I'm using the music from the Captain Nemo's organ, like toccata and fugue.
Mm-hmm.
The fireworks factory I had a lot of fun with, but it was kind of tricky because I had to find just the right music. I had sort of gone through different incarnations. I think I sent you one of the earlier ones, Brian, that I ended up changing.
It was cool.
So this was going...
Yeah, all this stuff is really cool and imaginative. I think you did a good job.
This was going to be a Fisherman's Wharf / Chinatown section of the area. So it had sort of a Chinese American theme to this area, and this was going to be a fireworks factory, and it was an arcade, and it had a fireworks theme to it. So I used Chinese music, sort of Chinese New Year kind of music, with the sound of fireworks and guns blasting to represent this. I think it came out kind of fun. The Lost River Delta, which was supposed to be a repurposing of the dinosaurs from the primeval world, but it would be in a boat attraction. Sound familiar? Jurassic Park stole this idea.
Totally stole that you picked here.
Totally stole the idea. The Jurassic Park attraction at Universal basically stole this entire idea, in my opinion. Anyway, that being said, I used music from the from two sources for this. The music from the Journey to the Center of the Earth attraction at Tokyo Disney Sea. Plus, I used the music from the Primeval World segment of the Disneyland Railroad. And I just combined the two pieces.
Yeah. Speaking of Tokyo Disney Sea, a few of these things have been were wheeled into reality into that park. So you
well as Discoveryland in Disneyland
in Paris.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is true.
One of my favorite places in Tokyo Disney Sea is the Mysterious Island, which is kind of like
very much derived from this. Yes.
Discovery Bay evolved into over there, and there is a Nemo restaurant called Volcano,
and there is a 20,000 Leagues attraction as well.
Yeah.
Plus a Journey to the Center of the Earth.
And that's my second favorite attraction over there.
So Professor Marvel's Gallery of Illusion was supposed to be sort of like an America Sings Carousel of Progress type show with the moving theater, but it was going to involve a professor and his pet dragon. Sound familiar? It evolved into Journey into Imagination. So
Oh,
I used
yeah.
the song, instrumental versions of the song Imagination to represent this. Tomorrowland 2055 was a late 80s, early 90s concept to redo Tomorrowland, which never happened. And so these are some of the things that they had thought of for Tomorrowland 2055. They picked that year because it would have been the 100th anniversary of Disneyland. So some of this is authentic music. Some of this is music from things that evolved out of, actual things that did open in other parks that evolved out of Tomorrowland 2055. So the first one is actual theme music. This is authentic music that was recorded, and it was eventually used for the Space Mountain Concourse, and later for the Orbitron, which sort of looks like the same thing in this picture. They had planned on putting that sculpture on the top, but originally the rocket jets would have stayed and gone around this thing, as you can see from the picture.
Oh, yeah, neat.
So
Yeah.
this is actual music that they had written for Tomorrowland 2055. The next one is the Timekeeper. This is just background music from the waiting areas for the Circle Vision show, which started at Disneyland Paris, and then it was the Timekeeper in Florida. This was something they had originally thought of for Disneyland Circle Vision Theater, but it ended up not being put there. Another thing they had planned was Alien Encounter, which ended up going in Disney World, but not in Disneyland. It would have gone where Mission to Mars was, and now it's a pizza restaurant.
Yeah.
So I'm using background music from Walt Disney World's Alien Encounter to represent this. Now the next one, I had to be a little bit more creative because this never got built anywhere. This was going to be a show inside the Carousel Theater, with aliens playing sort of a vaudeville type show. So I just found some music by the same composer that wrote Baroque Hoedown, and I found a later record from the early 80s by him, and I used some songs that I felt sort of had the same sort of spirit and represented what this attraction would have been. Sort of like a circusy, vaudeville, showbiz kind of a sound, all with electronic instruments. The next one, I found the perfect piece of music. I found a version of the Black Hole, which was sort of like a synthesizer version of the main title from the Disney movie. Originally, they had planned on doing a laser blast attraction, which of course evolved into Buzz Lightyear later, years later. But their original thinking was the second floor of the Carousel Theater was going to have the Black Hole laser blast shooter ride, which never happened, unfortunately, because that sounds like it would have been amazing.
Yeah, it would have been really cool. Who doesn't love the Black Hole movie, too?
The next one was the second idea. After they dropped the idea for PT Quantum, they thought they would do sort of an animation exhibit inside the Carousel building, and it was going to be called the Great Animation Machine. I found some music sort of representing animation that I felt sort of sounded, it's traditional, like Disney-esque type of music, but it sounds like it was more recently recorded. It sounds more, just the acoustics and everything sound more, it was recorded in the 90s and whatever. So I felt like it worked perfectly. I sort of have the sound of a movie projector, and it sort of evolves, and I don't know. I love how that one came out. You have to go listen to it. It's a lot of fun. The next one is for a parade that never happened. That was going to tie in when they opened the new Tomorrowland 2055. It was going to tie into it. It was going to be called Light Keepers. And it was going to sort of replace the electrical parade and be a part of the whole theming and ideas behind Tomorrowland 2055. And it was going to have the aliens have landed and they're returning to Tomorrowland 2055 down Main Street. So I sort of found more of that Baroque Hoedown style music from that same album It sort of sounded like the type of music for that type of parade. I think it all came out really well for having to come up with stuff that never existed. I'm pretty happy with it. It really gives you a good sense of what this area would have been like. So, whoo! That was a lot, Brian.
No, you did great. You went all the way through it, and I think you built some excitement for your listeners out there. I'm sure excited to check it out.
So I also added some other new tracks to some other chapters, but they're all things that are also on this chapter. I replaced them because I also did them for this chapter. They're on more than one chapter. So there's, like the Mickey Mouse reunion is also on my Disneyland Showtime page, which is the live shows page. Things like that. Things that sort of overlap into more than one chapter. But other than that, this is basically everything I've worked on. So, what's next, Brian? What am I working on now? Do you remember?
I think you're going to try to finish off the rest of your Tomorrowland chapters. I think you started working on chapter 16, which is the
60s Tomorrowland.
67 60s, yeah, the reimagined Tomorrowland.
1967 to 1973, so that includes Inner Space and the Carousel of Progress, America the Beautiful, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and then I think you'll switch over to 18, and that's the current version of Tomorrowland.
And when I say current, I mean from the late 90s up till today.
Right.
I know the late 90s isn't current anymore, but when I started working on this, it was. That's how long I've been working on this. I mean, I used to have...
You're all in on Tomorrowland right now, so you're running with the momentum there.
I used to have Star Tours and Captain EO on my Tomorrowland of Today chapter, and it has since transitioned into the... because time marches on and I get old. Well, I'd like to thank everybody again for your continued support. I don't think we'll be back for a mid-month update this time. Never say never, but as Brian said, I'm working on 2 chapters at once, and these are a little more tricky. I mean, one of the reasons I picked chapter 17 is I knew it would be pretty easy. So these are a little more involved, and it'll take me longer to get stuff set up. So I don't know that I'm going to have much new content between now and the 15th, because it's all sort of prep work right now, behind the scenes stuff. But you'll be reaping the benefits by the beginning of July, for sure. So I will talk to you all then. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
And we will talk to you all
everybody.
On the flippity flow. Enjoy your summer, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.